Welcome to At One Insight World, your go-to channel for geopolitical insights. Today, we look at Europe's inevitable escape from the coming war and the solution that, if Europe's eyes are open to it, will cause dramatic changes. The European Gambit, navigating the storm with Reza Pahlavi, as the morning sun casts its light over the world on Wednesday, July 23, 2025, at 11:52 a.m., a shadow of impending conflict looms large over Europe, a continent that has long prided itself on its diplomatic finesse and economic resilience. The winds of war are gathering strength, driven by the relentless dynamics of a new geopolitical axis: Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, collectively forming what some call the quadrilateral of mischief. This alliance, with its intricate web of economic dependencies, military collaborations, and strategic ambitions, is poised to challenge the established order, and Europe finds itself inescapably drawn into this unfolding drama. Whether it wishes to be or not, the continent stands at a crossroads where the choice is not merely about participation but survival. To navigate this storm and emerge with its integrity intact, Europe must open its eyes to a reality it can no longer ignore. The key to its salvation lies in embracing an unlikely yet potent ally, Reza Pahlavi, the son of the late Shah of Iran, and leveraging the opportunities his rise could unlock in the war that is steadily approaching. Imagine standing on the shores of the North Sea, gazing toward the horizon where dark clouds of tension gather. The recent 12-day war between Iran and Israel in June 2025, marked by Operation Lion's Dawn, has sent ripples across the globe, exposing the fragility of the current order. Iran, a linchpin in this quadrilateral, has long been a thorn in the side of Western interests, its nuclear ambitions and support for proxy groups threatening the stability of the Persian Gulf, through which 20 million barrels of oil flow daily to fuel Europe's economy. Russia, the seasoned patriarch of this alliance, leverages its energy exports and military might, tested in the grueling conflict in Ukraine, to flex its muscles against a Europe still reeling from the 2022 gas cutoff. China, the wealthy benefactor, pours billions into this coalition, buying Iranian oil and propping up Russia's economy amidst sanctions, while its Belt and Road Initiative seeks to entwine the Persian Gulf in its economic web. North Korea, the impoverished yet volatile member, adds a wild card with its missile tests, sustained by China's financial lifeline. Together, they form a bloc that challenges the West, and Europe, with its 856 billion euros of trade with China in 2024 alone, cannot escape the economic and strategic entanglements that bind it to this unfolding conflict. Yet, Europe's position is far from secure. Its economy, strained by inflation and supply chain disruptions, 98% of its rare earth materials reliant on China, lacks the robustness to withstand a prolonged war. The NATO budget is rising, with commitments to bolster defenses against Russian threats by 2027, and whispers of public preparedness programs are emerging in countries like Poland and the Baltics. But these measures, while necessary, are insufficient against a war that could stretch 5 to 10 years, draining resources and morale. The continent's leaders have clung to diplomacy, hoping to mediate tensions in the Persian Gulf or broker peace with Iran's current regime. But this approach is a mirage in the desert of reality. The quadrilateral's actions, Russia's energy blackmail, China's economic leverage, Iran's regional destabilization, and North Korea's provocations, leave Europe with no neutral ground. It is in this crucible that the continent must recognize its compulsion to act, not as a bystander, but as a player with a stake in the game. At the heart of this compulsion lies the Persian Gulf, a lifeline for Europe's energy security. The Strait of Hormuz, a narrow choke point through which much of the world's oil flows, is a geopolitical fault line. Iran's threats to close it, backed by its alliance with Russia and China, could cripple Europe's economy overnight. The United States, with its trillion-dollar deals signed by Donald Trump in May 2025 with Persian Gulf states like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, is tightening its grip on the region, pressuring Europe to align or face isolation. These contracts, spanning defense, AI, and infrastructure, bind the Gulf nations to Washington, reducing China's foothold and amplifying the need for a stable Iran. A regime change in Tehran, shifting the country from the quadrilateral's orbit to a Western-aligned stance, becomes not just desirable but essential for Europe's survival. And here, Reza Pahlavi emerges as the figurehead around whom this transformation could pivot. Reza Pahlavi, the son of the late Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, has stepped onto the global stage with a purpose that belies his decades of silence. His recent surge in activity, visits to Israel in 2023 with a warm welcome from figures like Gilad Erdan, prayers at the Western Wall, and conferences with European parliamentarians, suggests a calculated re-entry. The claim that 85% of Iranians inside and outside the country support him, fueled by campaigns on X like #KingReza and #IranFuture, may be an exaggeration, yet the sentiment reflects a growing appetite for change. His outreach to elites, promises of a tension-free transition, and alignment with Western interests indicate a behind-the-scenes consensus, possibly brokered with Israel, the US, and European powers. This consensus, forged in the wake of Iran's recent military setbacks and the quadrilateral's overreach, positions him as a viable alternative to the current regime, one that could dismantle Iran's role in this adversarial bloc. But why must Europe place its hand on this pawn? The answer lies in the cascading effects of Iran's potential realignment. A government led by Reza Pahlavi, inclined toward the West, would sever the quadrilateral's energy and military supply lines. Iran's oil, currently funneled to China, and its missiles, supplied to Russia, would redirect toward European and American markets, stabilizing energy prices and weakening the bloc's cohesion. The Persian Gulf, freed from Tehran's threats, would become a safer conduit for oil, easing the economic strain on Europe. Moreover, this shift would align with U.S. interests, reinforcing the trillion-dollar Gulf contracts and isolating China's influence, which has waned as Iran's stability erodes. For Europe, this is not a choice, but a necessity. Failure to support this transition risks a war where it stands alone, economically crippled and militarily outmatched. Yet, this path is fraught with complexities that demand Europe's strategic acumen. The current regime's collapse, accelerated by Israel's precision strikes under Operation Lion's Dawn, has weakened its repressive apparatus, creating a vacuum that Reza Pahlavi could fill. However, the transition must be managed with finesse to avoid internal chaos, which could invite Russian or Chinese intervention. Europe's diplomatic machinery, honed through decades of negotiation, must work in tandem with American pressure and Israeli operations to ensure a smooth handover. This requires covert support, financial aid, media amplification, and quiet assurances to Iranian elites, without triggering a backlash that labels it as foreign meddling. The quadrilateral, sensing this threat, may retaliate with escalated actions, such as Russian incursions in Eastern Europe or Chinese pressure in the South China Sea, forcing Europe to bolster its NATO defenses while pursuing this delicate maneuver. Consider the broader implications. A Western-aligned Iran under Reza Pahlavi would not only neutralize the quadrilateral's southern flank, but also shift the balance of power in the Middle East, aligning it with Saudi Arabia and the UAE under America's umbrella. This realignment could shorten the looming war, reducing it from a decade-long quagmire to a conflict resolved in 2 to 3 years, preserving Europe's economic viability. Yet, it hinges on Europe's willingness to embrace this reality with open eyes. Clinging to outdated diplomacy or hoping for a miraculous de-escalation will leave it vulnerable to Russia's energy stranglehold, China's economic dominance, and Iran's regional gambits. The continent must accept that its survival depends on actively shaping the outcome, using Reza Pahlavi as a lever to pry open a new geopolitical order. Therefore, as you reflect on this narrative, ask yourself, can Europe afford to turn away from this opportunity? The war is coming, its drums already audible in the distance, and the quadrilateral shadow grows longer with each passing day. Europe's economy, fragile and dependent, how long can it withstand the storm that approaches? Do the continent's leaders have the courage to accept this reality and move the pawn that could alter their fate? The answers to these questions will not only shape Europe's future, but also redefine the global order. The time to act is now, with eyes wide open, or the storm will sweep away all that Europe holds dear. Drop your thoughts in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more geopolitics insights. Stay curious,